Okay, we are live. Hello and welcome to the Product Angle Show. On today's episode, I have Sergio from MakerLog. How are you, Sergio?
Hi. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Uh, this is going to be a really good show.
Absolutely, looking forward to this. Thank you so much. So for those, I don't think anyone who's watching doesn't know who you are, but for the small population on the internet that doesn't, tell me who you are and what you do.
I'm Sergio Mattei. I am an entrepreneur and student, and I built MakerLog, which is a community of over 4,000, actually 5,000
Wow.
makers building products together.
Excellent. So before we get into MakerLog, something that I've been asking, I guess, other people that have come on the show. What is one thing about you that we cannot Google?
Oh, wow. That's actually an interesting question. One thing about me that you cannot Google. That actually Something interesting that people don't know is that MakerLog is not my primary productivity application. I actually use Asana and
Okay,
a combination of bullet journaling and MakerLog as a way to stay effective. So that's kind of an interesting fact that a lot of people do not know about me. Even though MakerLog is like my day-to-day, like small mini to-do application for bigger things and for bigger planning and whatnot, I use a combination of tools. That's just something off the top of my head.
interesting. So Asana, MakerLog, and what was the third one? Bullet
Uh,
journaling. You said?
Something like it. So I took the I was actually just reading around different ways to stay productive, and I essentially just found that the notebooks per se, which are like, these little dotted things.
Yeah, yeah.
They're dotted notebooks, and I made my own little version of it. It's probably completely off mark, but it works for me.
It does a job. I mean, yeah, dotted notebook right here. It
They're the
does the job.
best. They're actually such an amazing combination because usually you have the notebooks that are that have lines, right? That are just for
Yeah,
writing, and then you have the grid notebooks. But this is such a perfect combination because you have the flexibility of having a pattern for you to write on, and at the same time the flexibility of being able to draw and for example make mock-ups, which is an interesting tangent, but I really love those notebooks. So I'm willing to go off on it for hours on end.
absolutely. I'm the same. I've used aligned notebooks, and for some reason they're good for writing, but anything else it just doesn't vibe. Whereas
Yeah,
these dotted type notebooks, you can do so much more with them.
absolutely. They feel more restrictive. I always end up feeling more restricted when I end up getting a normal notebook. For example, for college, I have my separate notebook for notes. And at one point, I even considered just straight up using one of these for all my college stuff because they're actually great for combining math and text. Uh, and my traditional notebook doesn't really do that very well. Uh, I'd use them for pretty much everything if possible.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned you're in college. I mean, can we talk about what year before you graduate or what you're doing? Can we talk about what you're doing there?
Absolutely. So I'm a second year student. I am currently in the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras, and I'm studying computer science, which is very interesting. I I also have kind of a little thing for finance and business management. So I'm kind of thinking to see how I can do a minor here. Like, dude, I'm not sure. I'm still figuring things out. But
No,
yeah,
that's fair enough.
I'm pretty much just doing computer science and hoping to go somewhere in finance or business administration, which are my passions too.
Fair enough. So I remember you had gone through I think it was iCorps, a program a while ago. So as we go through talking about MakerLog and things like that, if you can weave in some stories through that experience, I think that would be amazing because my takeaway from what I've known you share online and through Telegram and things like that is that it was a very beneficial experience for you, and I guess the highlight was really getting out there and talking to people, right? As opposed to building something that you want and you think other people want, but actually getting out there, talking to people, and understanding how they currently do things and how this, how a product could potentially help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually very excited to talk all about that because of the fact that iCorps for me was not just, it was like, it's so hard to explain how transformative that experience was to my whole stance on entrepreneurship and what I do. You know, uh, I like to mark that as the point where I went from somebody who just builds things to somebody who actually builds things to succeed, right? Somebody who
Yeah.
wants to build a business. Because one thing is building little side projects here and there and seeing them get a little traction. Another thing is actually trying to build a sustainable business. And for me, that was where I could confidently say that I went from trying to build a thing to knowing that knowing all the fundamentals to finally go to the next step. So I'll be very happy to talk about all that. I learned a lot about customer discovery, the lean startup, stuff that I didn't know beforehand, but now I know it. And even though I was kind of practicing it, putting it in practice a little bit without really knowing the formal side of things, still going down that rabbit hole and learning all about it has been such has had an incredible influence over my work and life.
Definitely. I mean, and as we talk about it, if you want to build something for the sake of building it, there's nothing wrong with that because that's how you practice. Not every product needs to be a business, but as soon as you start getting into that momentum of building something, releasing it, shipping it, getting feedback, you're learning. So not every product has to be a business if you don't want it to be. If you want to just go learn something, to build something, to ship something, that's fine as well. But the minute you want to start actually monetizing and creating a business, I think that mentality of how we go about doing things shifts slightly.
I absolutely agree. You absolutely do not need to have a purpose to build a business if you're building anything. A lot of people build things just for fun, but
Yeah.
there's actually a funny situation that a lot of people might find themselves in is that they build a thing, it gets traction, and then you realize, oh wait, so this is my little side project, and now people are really liking it and people are using it. This actually looks like a sustainable business that you could possibly make it a real thing, and for those times it definitely helps. In terms of MakerLog, MakerLog is, once again, it didn't really start it didn't start with the intention of, hey, I'm going to make something that makes MRR and it's going to be like a huge thing. But eventually it got a little bit of traction. People start using it. And I just decided, you know what, let's try to make this work.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Leon. Hey, Kyle. They're on the stream. Thanks for joining in. Now, Sergio, when you thought up of MakerLog, when was that? And talk us through, coming up with that idea and actually saying, you know what, let me do something about it and go and do it.
Well, I basically thought of this is the story of MakerLog. I was actually going to the story of MakerLog right today because I was writing an interview for Indie Hackers, and they were like, "Yo, what was the general story of MakerLog?" So I started thinking about it. Basically, it all started when I first discovered the Maker community, right? So in my first encounter with the Maker community, I found the problem that products similar to MakerLog solves. So I was just browsing around in Product Hunt, and I saw this guy who was called Peter Levels, and he had built hood maps. And I checked out hood maps. Then I checked out his Twitter profile. I was like, wow, this guy, wow, he does a lot of the stuff I do, which is kind of interesting. He ships things constantly. And I checked his profile, and he had a link to a public roadmap from a site called WebChat. And I was like, wow, this actually looks really cool. I really like this WebChat thing. So I went down I hit the create account button, and then I realized, oh, it's like $20 a month. That's insane. I'm not gonna pay for that. I'm a college student. I don't really I don't have money to pay that.
Yeah.
So I just started building my own little version of it, mostly for private purposes. As I said, I didn't really mean it to be like a thing. I just started building it for myself, and I actually during the building process slowly started letting people in. Right when we were in alpha, started letting people in, mostly from the Maker's Kitchen, which is another maker community, a huge maker community, an amazing maker community. It's actually on Slack, makerskitchen.xyz. So anybody who wants to check it out, that's the link. So people from there started trying it out, and I started gathering feedback from them, and eventually I saw that there was demand, so we opened it up. We launched it on Product Hunt, and it's been going very well since then. It initially received a lot of flack due to, well, the controversial origins of it. I mean, it was straight up a clone. But that was just the spice of life, I guess. Everything is going very well, and that's pretty much how it all started.
I mean, I think I found out about you through Fajar, and I think he introduced me to Makerlog, and then I got onto the Telegram group, and every now and again I would interact with makers and talk about what I'm working on, what they're working on, and it's a fantastic community. So I have to give you kudos for building a fantastic community. And you mentioned 5,000 people at the beginning of this goal. So wow, congratulations for building such an amazing product that everybody, a lot of people want to use. So when you are, thinking about what's next for GetMakerlog, you've put out a post recently with your roadmap for 2020. Now you've got community, you've got regional variants, finances, monetization, advertising, gold and patrons, and you want to make it more inclusive. So let's start talking through each of those sections, if you will. So
Absolutely.
To begin with, community, what I took away is you want to increase interactions, discoverability, and engagement metrics. And I think at the beginning of that post, you put something along the lines of you want to change it, or you want to modify it from just a task app into more. And I love where you're going with this, because to me, I've never actually used the task side of things. I've always been more interested in the community and getting to understand what a maker is, how a maker thinks, how the thinking behind a maker. And that's what I found so much value in your Telegram group. I know you have that website and the task app. I'm slowly starting to get into that, but for me, it started with the Telegram group.
You're absolutely, I'm going to tell you one thing for sure. You're absolutely going to love the updates that are coming this year, and especially this summer. So right now, as you said, yes, I'm absolutely working to bring more content types to the feed, specifically because if there's one thing that people will definitely not say, it's that the feed is absolutely fun on the current version of MakerLog. They're not going to tell you, wow, this is an amazing feed. It's really bad. It's honestly actually quite boring. So the thing that the new update fixes is essentially it adds a formal activity feed to the site. So you'll not only be able to see tasks, but you'll be able to see discussions and replies and launches. And it actually adds a lot more context to the shipping experience, because of course you don't do tasks in a vacuum. You launch products, you add products, it's going to add a lot more diversity to the feed, which is going to make it hopefully much more interesting, because that's really the whole purpose of it. Aside from increasing metrics, it's just going to be a much more engaging feed.
Yeah, definitely sounds interesting.
The main goals, aside from, I'm going to just list the main goals: making it more interesting, improving retention metrics. MakerLog is a retention product, so it makes sense to optimize for that metric, especially since time on site isn't exactly great on MakerLog. That's basically about it.
Got it. Now, what's the regional variants going to be about? I know Fajar has had MakerLog meetups in India and Singapore. I've seen other cities that you're targeting. What is these regional variants going to be about?
Regional variance is the concept I'm trying to push at the moment. So one of the amazing things that I noticed from other maker communities out there is that they've grown to a point where they can actually start little variants of themselves in sub communities, right? So there's an interesting thing about this. Well, yeah, sure, I'll call it the science of communities, where communities eventually all, you start out to a point. Let's say you start out with a number of people that is really tiny, and that's a number of people where subdividing it into communities doesn't make sense. But eventually it starts growing and growing and growing and growing to the point that you will have to make a decision about when to start dividing communities up, because now it makes sense, because then it just becomes a giant ball of people and nobody can really find each other, and it's kind of a pain. So MakerLog is slowly heading towards that direction where, having everybody in the same bunch is just getting counterproductive in terms of making makers discover each other and stay accountable, right? So I'm starting to reach the point where I think that dividing it into sub-communities might actually make sense, and that includes features like groups, for example, on MakerLog. It could include features like the following feed, which is actually coming back to make things more relevant to makers, and regional variants. So regional variants is essentially events for each region. Let's say we have MakerLog New York. Let's say we have MakerLog Puerto Rico, MakerLog Asia, right? So it's a way of connecting makers to other like-minded people in the same geographic region, which I think will be absolutely very, very valuable to makers from all around the world.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to MakerLog New York.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of people in New York. I have Brendan. Brendan's always like, yo, we got to do a MakerLog event in New York. Or I actually sent him stickers very recently, so I hope he meets you sometime so he can hand you a couple MakerLog stickers.
Definitely, I think I've met him once before. So yeah, definitely, that's exciting. Now we use the term maker a lot. Now before we proceed, explain what a maker is to me. I have a sense, and I've read there's articles on what makers are and things like that. But as a maker, tell me how you identify as a maker, or what a maker is.
A maker is usually somebody who builds anything, either for pleasure or for profit. Hell, sometimes even for both. In my case, I build things because I want to make profit. Aside from just pleasure, of course, I want to build a sustainable business, so I can make a little money, sustain myself. But generally, just a person that builds projects, usually technical.
Okay.
Generally technical, but there's also makers of all kinds. There's makers that make things in terms of design. For example, I saw on MakerLog that there are a couple of people that post their daily design post. Generally, anybody who makes anything. And then I know that sounds like a really broad explanation. I mean, of course, that's what a maker is. But if you make something out of passion or for profit or both, and if you're a little technical, you actually kind of fit in very well in MakerLog.
That makes sense. I mean, how do you describe the difference between a maker and an indie hacker?
Oof, that's an interesting thing. I think an indie hacker is more aligned towards the profit side of things. It's just somebody, a classic entrepreneur trying to build a profitable product. So I would say that they're just makers for profit. That's basically it.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of interesting terminology around. There's an unclear distinction between indie hacker and maker per se. I would say it's more of a culture thing. Indie hackers are more suited towards profit, towards creating sustainable business, and what goes around creating these structures that create businesses. Just classic entrepreneurs in the sense. But I think there's an overlap there. I would say that indie maker with for profit is basically the same as an indie hacker. I consider myself an indie hacker. So I think it's a culture division basically.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. It's always good to understand these different segments because there's posts on Twitter that talk about makers, there's posts that talk about indie hackers, and then I'm seeing posts about product builders. And it's just, I get the behind the scenes. We all want to build a product, maybe even sell it, monetize it, make it into a business. But there's just different variants of communities that pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually been the interesting challenge for MakerLog, an interesting challenge for MakerLog the past few months. The past few months, and this is just more of a personal thing, there's been a challenge to where the biggest challenge the past few months, especially in discussing with my creative partner, Ekton, which helps me work on MakerLog, has been trying to figure out where to go with it. Right. So at a point, MakerLog was kind of stagnating because I was mostly just gone. I was dealing with personal issues at the time. I couldn't really work on MakerLog very much, and it was kind of stagnating. It had no direction. And I'm out here admitting that because in the interest of full transparency. And that's actually defining what a maker is of course fundamental to what MakerLog is. And an interesting thing is that we both decided, Ekton and me, we both decided that we need to start gradually opening up the definition of maker over time. We defined it clearly over a phone call, and then we decided, you know what? If we want this thing to grow, we need to slowly start opening it up. And so right now, clearly put and clearly defined, it would just be, as I mentioned, there are makers who build for passion, makers in technology who build for passion, makers in technology who build for profit. Mostly small entrepreneurs, most are remote nomads, digital nomads, which is kind of interesting. People who build products to sustain themselves.
Fair enough. Now, moving into the monetization and the finances of MakerLog. Now, I see, from a monetization perspective, you have ads, and I think the way you do ads is amazing because it's not in your face. There are some websites where I'm trying to read something or trying to do something on that website, and all of a sudden you get 5-6 pop-ups, and you have to click no to each of those before you can get to the content. And one of the things I love about MakerLog is that you log in and you're absolutely just able to do what you need to do. And in the corner or on the side, there's a small little image or something that, it's clearly advertising, but I think you do it very well.
Yeah, so MakerLog's stance on ads basically comes from it always sounds weird when I say this, but it comes from a stance of taste. I really dislike, traditional sites with a lot of advertising. I dislike AdSense. I think it's pretty dumb. I I honestly dislike any kind of, advertising that just is ugly, adds a lot of irrelevant stuff to the site. And so initially I actually used Carbon ads, which is ads for developers, very similar to the current advertising system. It had a pretty good it was a pretty good revenue stream. However, I ended up going with Introvert. So Introvert is a system that allows people to directly buy ads on MakerLog, as almost like a sponsorship in a way. So for $69, they'd get 30,000 impressions basically. And it's been working out really well. They are really tasteful ads. I get to pre-approve which ads go on. I get to place them all around the site, but I actually get to place them in more places since they're so unintrusive. They're so easy to place around, and they're really tasteful, which is something I really like. And they actually bring substantial revenue, actually. I'm pretty happy with the advertising system on MakerLog. It's pretty fantastic. And I recommend if you have a community you want to monetize it, use Introvert. It's pretty fire, actually. It's a great revenue stream.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Now, besides ads, you have a gold feature and potentially you mentioned a Patreon. So talk us through, what the gold feature is and what your plans for Patreon are.
Now, this is the time where I start giving a little inside scoop into the MakerLog monetization roadmap.
So first on the Product Angle Show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've been thinking a lot about how we can increase MRR, because right now MRR is at $300. It's pretty stagnant, and it would require a lot of volume to be able to get to very sustainable levels. I mean, it makes profit, but it's not really something that could make me eventually go full time on it, or you feel me? It's not enough, and I've been looking to optimize that, and I found that gold is just not a really good offering. I'm not a fan of what I'm doing with gold at the moment. I'm not a fan of what the gold plan offers, and I'm actually going to replace it completely. So I've found a lot of feedback that people don't really buy gold because it provides any specific sort of value to them. People don't think about it in the traditional SaaS way. It's just a way to support the community, right? And in fact, I've had a lot of people express to me, "Hey, make it more expensive, fucks." Like, make it more expensive. It's a little too cheap, and I want to support the community further. And so I've eventually decided that gold is probably, and I'm not gonna commit publicly to anything because you never know, but most probably, at least in the current roadmap, it's straight up going to go away.
Okay.
Gold is going to go away for good, and it's going to replace by a Patreon plan. Current subscribers will probably just stay on the gold plan with no obligation to upgrade, but you'll be given the option to upgrade. The Patreon plan will be substantially more expensive, of course. It will be, well, I can't give any pricing, but I'm still thinking between $10 to $20 a month, due to the fact that it'll be optional and it'll just be for supporting the site. It'll just be a plan where people can, if you really like MakerLog and you want it to succeed, hit $20 a month and you'll be contributing directly to making it sustainable. I'll have a lot more perks. I'm currently working on a few partnerships, particularly with deals, so you'll get a lot of exclusive deals.
Okay.
And it will have a lot more interesting little features that I'm still working out in my mind and collecting feedback to see what people really want. In general, it'll just be a package for supporting MakerLog, and I think it's a good step, not only because I strongly believe that it will essentially make us hit our MRR goals, but because it just makes more sense. I mean, the MakerLog Gold isn't really a particularly compelling package at the moment, and people are buying it. But then again, as I heard from most people that bought it, and I start emailing, I start getting on the ground, I start telling people, "Yo, what do you think about the current offering?" Right? And what I heard all around is, "I'm buying this because I want to support you and I want to support MakerLog's work." So I just decided, you know what, I'm going to double down on this. If people want to support MakerLog, I'm going to give them a lot more flexibility in how to do it. And that's basically the roadmap for Gold and Patrons.
Any companies, any partnerships you wanna mention here
Beforehand? Nothing by name just yet, but I mean, I'm still currently working out things and emailing back and forth, but yes, I'm absolutely looking to expand the offering to make it much more valuable.
Yep.
Not in a traditional SaaS sense, because usually would mean adding more gold features, but more like just generally making it a more compelling offering while keeping MakerLog free and open. It's interesting because you have to keep a balance, and it's not like you can just add a bunch of features because it's not really a SaaS. It's more of a community. Yeah. Monetizing communities is hard, man.
It is. I get it. Building it is easy to an extent. Scaling it, middle ground, but monetizing and getting people to actually pay for something, that's where it's hard. And I think when you're able to collect money or have somebody buy from you, you're really doing something that solves a need for them versus something that isn't.
Absolutely. And the hardest thing is you can't really reason about it like a particular business, not a particular business, like an actual juicial business, right? You can't think about it in the mindset of, hey, this is a SaaS, because it's not a SaaS. You can't think about it as a regular product. It's a community, which is a completely different category. and it monetizes in very different ways. You don't really have customers; you have patrons in a way. So it makes it hard to think about in the greater scheme of things. It makes you hard. It makes it hard to like visualize and figure out how to monetize it and do things right while without alienating your community. But that's just the fun of it. that's just how it is. And once you figure it out, like, whoa, wow, okay. Once you shift from the SaaS to the community mindset, because when you start thinking about it, you tend to go to the traditional route. But when you get the mind shift, it gets much clearer in a way.
Definitely, I love how you are giving away value for free, whereas platforms are starting to charge membership fees to be a part of the community, the program, whatever it may be. So I love how MakerLog is open to everybody, and now you're figuring out ways how to add additional value to the tremendous value that you already provide.
Yeah, I don't think that's the thing about membership fees. I don't think they are wrong. They're actually a fantastic way to monetize. But I kind of took the hard way out. The hard way. I started trying to monetize a free community, which is hard. But I actually am pretty happy with the approach I went due to the fact that it allowed for really good growth. It's kind of a decision between growth and money, but it allowed for really good growth, and we have a really authentic community, which I'm really happy about. It's just a really nice community.
Agreed. I mean, I'm in the Telegram group every now and again, and just chatting with people. It's fun. I get to learn a lot from your community. I highly recommend, if any of the viewers have not heard about it, actually go and check it out.
Absolutely. And that's an interesting thing about growth. MakerLog currently is MakerLog's roadmap, at least for this month and for the next will mostly be work on Patrons, but at least from this month is doing a lot of optimizations, specifically to kick growth into high gear. So this is kind of a controversial thing because you have to grow tastefully. You have to grow without disintegrating the community. And without alienating the current user base. So it's tricky. You have to do it in a very, you have to do it slowly and carefully. But at least this month for me is essentially adding a bunch of stuff that will make MakerLog, that will make the growth of MakerLog a little easy. So for example, feeds are interesting because you can subdivide them. So when the time comes, I can make them into groups. For example, no code, Puerto Rican founders, New York City, right? So it makes it easier to divide and then into subgroups. Adding things like juicy new features that I haven't mentioned anywhere. Actually, there's a feature I'm really working on that I'm really happy about that will not only kick off the growth for MakerLog, but it will also kick off the personal growth for a lot of makers. This is going to be really interesting to talk about. So I've been looking for MakerLog so there's something I really wanted MakerLog to do and makers to do is to write more and engage in more long form writing. So I'm currently building a feature that will be very useful for a lot of makers that will allow you to share what you've learned on a daily basis. Right, so now that I've said the concept matter, so I just go all in.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I will see how far you go. So I think you've spilled some beans. It's an exclusive here on the Product Angle Show. So let's continue talking about it if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to drop a little bit about it. So MakerLog, I think this feature. Okay, so let me explain the feature first. So the feature will be essentially called. Well, I haven't settled on the name yet because the name does have a lot to do with it. But it will be similar to check-ins, right? So every day you will get one check-in, and this check-in is essentially a piece of writing that you do. Short, could be long. Essentially, a today I learned, where you list your knowledge the knowledge you gathered that day. And for example, if today you tried a new marketing strategy that worked, you'd go, today I tried a new marketing strategy that worked. You'd go on detailed, you'd be able to link it up to tasks per se, and show how you gained that knowledge. And you get one per day, and you'd get statistics on it, like a streak for each check-in. It's completely optional. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I think it's such an incredible milestone into what MakerLog is and what MakerLog wants to be. Because now we're going from short tasks that don't really provide a lot of context to long form content that could potentially document your entire journey from 0 to 100, right? And it could even shift the community of MakerLog, the culture around the community of MakerLog, towards a learning-oriented culture in which you strive to learn every day and share those learnings with the community. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. I know that sounds really weird and abstract.
No, not at all. Not at all. It sounds super exciting.
But yeah, I just want to help people write a little bit more about their knowledge every day. Not necessarily, like blog posts or something formal, but if I get makers to at least write 1 or 2 sentences every day detailing what they learned and keeping it out there for posterity so they can go back and see their journey and share it with other people in the community. That's such a powerful thing, and I'm looking to hopefully build that.
It is absolutely every day. I think, in 6 months to a year, the amount, if you write 1 or 2 sentences every day, compounded over a year, you'll be able to see that progress or whatever, your thoughts, your feelings, whatever it is. I think that's going to be tremendously powerful.
Absolutely. And I think it aligns very well too with the lean startup ideology, where the lean startup is all about experimenting and learning constantly.
Yeah.
And this is the culture that I want to foster on MakerLog, a culture where makers experiment, where indie hackers and makers experiment daily, share their knowledge, write a little bit more about what they've learned and how they failed also, because we all fail and very few people write about how they fail. And that's something that I believe should be written more, so makers don't only see the success stories but also the millions of failures that go behind them. In general, I just want to make a place where people share knowledge and help each other become more productive, and I think that's the next big step. And it also supports growth goals for MakerLog, because more long form content is just generally more interesting. I'd love to see how people on MakerLog get things done on the daily basis and what they learn daily. So yeah, I'm really hoping to ship this. I can't promise that it will be out. Then again, I'm talking roadmap, and everything that is on a roadmap that is not done yet is hypothetical.
It's your vision, and I wish you all the best in actually achieving it, because I think you're doing an amazing job. And one of the things that I really liked what you've done recently is that you have streaks on MakerLog, and it's in a way it could potentially be easy to game it if you just type in whatever just to keep that streak alive. And then it takes away from that meaningful tasks or activities that you're doing, because you want to get, maker of the week or maker of the year just to keep that streak alive. So recently you had given, changed in how streaks work, where you've given off days and holidays and things like that. Talk us through that, because when I saw the email for that, I thought that was really, needed. And it serves 2 purposes. In my opinion, it serves the purpose of people not wanting to game the system just because they want to keep their streak, but also from a mentality perspective and mental health perspective, it helps makers relax and do other things, but also keep in the back of the minds, hey, I'm also working on this. So talk me through that and how you came up with the idea and getting it out there, implemented.
So MakerLog's, the rest days feature kind of starts with something that I struggle with. I struggle with burnout. And mostly because I'm a very productive person. I get a lot of things done. I have a lot on my plate. I'm a student. I make MakerLog. I go on every day. I answer all the emails. I moderate. I do a lot of
What
stuff.
tickets?
And it's easy for me to get burned out if I don't take care of myself. And
Yeah.
last time I did, it took me 6 months. 6 months for me to recover. I mean, to finally feel like I was back into myself. And quite frankly, that's what MakerLog's rest day feature stems from knowing that in the past I've been burned out and I don't want it to happen to other makers. Um, that's basically where it came from. Generally, that I saw that there was a little too much hustle porn on the community, too much of a grind, and MakerLog kind of encourages a bit of an unhealthy culture in that sense. So rest days is a good way to counterbalance that.
I love that you built it because of your own need, and I think it's a popular feature. Obviously, you know the stats of how many people use it and how it's used, but in my opinion, I think it looks like a good feature, and from what I've seen in the Telegram groups, it's people liking it.
Yeah, a lot of people use it. The only criticism I have, and that I would probably, there's one thing about it that I'm kind of, how do I say this? That I am torn about, and it's the fact that it does extend streaks really for a really long time, right? So it's much harder to get rid of a streak now if you have rest days. That's the one thing that I would have gone back and thought a little bit further before shipping to see how we could counteract that. But overall, it has achieved its goal very well. I mean, people are taking breaks. People are not afraid to go and have a day of fun if it means not if they're not going to lose their streak. They're much more willing to just straight up go do whatever they need to do to feel well. And not only that, it reduces it does a moderation goal for me. It reduces life logs, which is something that is really annoying and was really annoying on MakerLog, which is just people logging unrelated stuff. I mean, I log unrelated stuff, but one thing is, logging live things, having a 30-to-1 ratio of live things to work.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that just go on straight on MakerLog and try to sustain a 300-day streak by just logging drank water #life.
Yes, I hear you. So I as with every product, I think there's going to be iterations. You ship something, and you learn from it, and then you reiterate. Hey, David, thank you for joining. So I like that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Now, can we talk? You've put some numbers out on your roadmap for the MMR goals. Can you talk us through those numbers and what the thinking behind it is?
Essentially, okay. So the numbers are 3K MRR by end of year, 10,000 users by end of year, and 5 times daily active users by end of year. So the mindset for these numbers is essentially go reach as high as you possibly can, because it motivates you to get things done, right? So they're not necessarily the most realistic, but they are what I need to
aim for it, because if it's too easy, exactly, aim as high as you can and adjust as you go along.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem aiming high and failing. I mean, that's the cool thing. If you set really ambitious goals, even if you fail, usually these ambitious goals push you to be better subconsciously, and that's what I'm going for. And quite frankly, I'm confident that we can reach that. I am absolutely confident. Looking at the growth that we're having right now, I'm confident we can reach it. And if we don't, I was still motivated, and I did what I could do, and I'm pretty happy with that.
There's no failings; it's all learnings, right? That's the way I look at it. That you try something, that's not if it doesn't work out, it's not a failure. It's a learning, because you're going to use that to do your next project, next product, whatever it may be, and you build as you fail, you learn something, you build something, you maybe have some success, you fail, you learn, you get back up and learn. It's to me, I view it like that. I don't see it as a failure.
No, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about success, that there is no success without vulnerability, and you have to expose yourself to either fail or succeed, and that's just the reality of things. And in this case, I am doing just that. I'm exposing myself to having to write either a really really sad tweet at the end of the year saying we did not reach 3K MRR, or either write a really successful tweet that says we reached 3K MRR, yeah, so
either way, you learn something.
Either way, you got somewhere, and you were motivated to go somewhere, and that's really all that matters. And that's really just the mindset behind those goals. I think I am confident that I could reach them, and if I don't, hell yeah, it motivated me to go hard on it. I'm pretty happy with that.
No, I wish you all the best, and I hope you reach it. And maybe we'll have you on again next year and do a kind of where we are now to what happened in a year's time kind of thing.
Absolutely. Hold on, I got to do something real quick. Somebody knocked at my door.
No worries. Yes, this is live streaming. Things happen. How are you guys doing? Kyle, Leon, David, thank you for joining. How's life going?
Hi, so
you're back. Hey.
Yeah, I had to resolve a little bit here.
No worries.
So yeah.
All right, so I want to shift the gears a little bit into how talking to your customers, customer discovery, how that's impacted you, because I feel like you get it, that it's important to talk to people, talk to customers, potential customers, and talk us through a little bit of that mindset, some of the learnings you had from iCorps, because I'm guilty of this as well. I'm sleeping, watching TV sometimes at 2 o'clock at night, browsing the internet, whatever it may be, and you have all these ideas. And then in the morning you wake up, or maybe in the nighttime you start coding, you start, building, putting things together, and then you don't actually have spoken to somebody. So, talk us through that change in mentality thinking, from just, having that idea and let me build it, to, okay, I have this idea, let me talk to people and see how they think about it.
That's the fun thing about entrepreneurs. So you know what the hardest thing for entrepreneur, you know what it is?
Tell me.
Accepting that your own ideas aren't the best ideas. So we happen to get a lot of ideas, and for a long time I was this person that thought vision over everything, right? So you get an idea, you just go and execute. People like it or they don't, that's it. The truth is there's a lot of waste involved in that process, and that's what iCorps kind of taught me. It taught me something that has affected not just my entrepreneurial life, my personal life, which is reducing waste by being vulnerable. So you go out there before. This is the traditional process without customer discovery. So you have an idea and you think, wow, I'm going to change the world with this idea and I'm going to make a lot of money with it. So you start building the idea, and you start trying to sell to a customer. You put the thing out there, and and then you start shipping features because you wonder, hey, people are not really using it. So I guess I just got to add more features because the competition has more features, right? So let's just add more and more features. And then 6 months later, you shut down the project because nobody ever used it. And now you have literally hundreds of thousands of lines of code of enterprise software that, there's so much waste involved in that process. And so much of that waste could have been reduced or slashed in half or even completely if you just literally left the building to talk to somebody.
Yes.
That is the essence of customer discovery. It is concept knowledge and the reduction of waste through discovery, through going to the people that you're actually aiming to sell this to, tell them and asking them, in of course, in very unbiased and general questions, asking them, would you use this? Not directly. Don't go to people and ask them what you use. So that implies a lot of cognitive biases and yes or no questions and whatnot. But the point is there that customer discovery is just a waste reduction method and knowledge acquisition method. You go out there to validate your idea before you start building it, so you can save yourself the millions of hours that you're gonna ship those features.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you find your target audience, but you don't know why they should buy from you. So you're not going there to tell them, hey, here's my product. You want to talk about the problems that your product solves and try and understand how they're currently solving it, right? Because if it's a problem that you think, okay, this is your solution to that problem, but what if they don't really need it, or they don't feel that it's a big enough problem that it validates buying something to solve it? But you're trying to get them to understand how they currently go about solving this problem. And if you understand the current behavior, you can start to figure out how your product could potentially help, and figure out why they should buy from you versus somebody else. So there's a lot of learnings in talking to potential customers, because it gives you an insight into how they think.
Exactly. And you can't really sell anything to anybody if you don't know how they think. I mean, you can't possibly, try to solve a problem. It's essentially trying to solve a problem while being blind. You have no idea what you're solving, why you're solving it. And I see this happen a lot in the maker community, where people just start building things in industries that they have no idea about without gathering feedback, and then they expect their products to fly off the shelves. No, that's not how this works. You have to know your target audience, and you have to talk to them to be able to build a product that they want. Hell, and one of the hardest things to accept is that what you're building or the idea is just not valid, and they need something else, not necessarily what you're building. So you have to also be very dynamic. You have to go to them and flow where the data takes you. And that's actually one of the most interesting things that I learned from the whole iCorps experience. Data is data, and you listen to what empirical data tells you. If the data is telling you this, you do that, because what you have in your brain, and when we are, that's an interesting thing. We can convince ourselves of many things, to the point that we have the data right in front of our faces. We have the giant red ball right in front of faces. We're like, where's the ball? Where's the ball? Right? So that's the skill that I learned in iCorps that I am really thankful for. Looking at data, understanding the data, and following the data, because it's empirical. That's what it is. In iCorps, I remember vividly my last night before the presentation, where I was with my partner Hector, and we were just in a room, basically processing the data and building the final presentation to come to conclusions on what the whole journey taught us, right? And I was just pacing around the room. In circles, like, oh my God, we have so much data. What is this telling us? I can't find the connection. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with all the code? I mean, I have no idea what the data is telling us. People are saying this, and we built the thing, and I was just so I couldn't see it. I was blinded. I couldn't see past my initial idea. And due to some cost fallacy, of course, building a thing and not wanting to let it all go to waste. So I was blinded by, my idea and some cost fallacy. I couldn't see past it until suddenly my partner was like, look at the data. He kind of gave me a slap in the face, not literally, but, with stuff he was saying. He just said, this is the data. The data is telling us this. The data is telling us this is who we need to sell to. The data is telling us this is the problem we need to solve. And then I slowly kind of start seeing past my idea and start breaking that mental barrier. And I start realizing, oh my God, there is a problem here that we could solve. And I'm actually passionate about that problem. And that's the hardest thing that was the hardest part of the whole journey in iCorps, breaking through my preconceptions, looking at myself objectively and realizing you have a wall in front of you, right? That was the hardest part of it, and probably the hardest part of entrepreneurship. Not letting your ego, not letting letting yourself be wrong for once,
Yeah,
and being dynamic and adapting to change.
definitely.
That was one of the most important things I learned there.
That's powerful. I mean, just to pitch in summer of product now for all the makers out there, customer discovery is such an important tool. I'm by no means an expert on customer discovery, but Caitlin Bourgoin is, and she'll be presenting on Friday. I believe it's June 5th between 12 and 1, and she is a customer discovery expert. I love all her content, and I've learned so much from her content. So, for all the makers in Makerlog, I'd love for them to join and watch Summer of Product, the customer discovery session with Caitlin.
If you are an entrepreneur and you have not taken a proper customer discovery course, take it. It will not only change the way you make things and ship, ship products and businesses. It will absolutely change your life. It will shed light into things like bias. The 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 embedded biases in the things you say. For example, if you're going to people and asking them questions like, "Would you use this? Would this solve the problem to you?" You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail because there's so
Absolutely.
much bias into those questions. Bias that you are as a person who's asking, that you are injecting into those questions, and so much bias from the person that you're asking the questions to. Exactly. The Mom Test is actually a fantastic book.
Great book.
Fully read it yet, but yes, that is a fantastic book. In general, if you haven't taken a customer discovery course, it will change your life. Do it. Absolutely do it. Because entrepreneurship is not just about having a vision and going with it. It's about listening. It's about knowing people. It's about interacting with people. And do it. Do it.
Yep. Fair enough. Now, as we start wrapping up, what have you learned now that you wish you knew before?
That's an interesting question. What have I learned now that I wish I'd learned before? I wish that I stopped you remember that mindset I talked to you about, the SaaS mindset and trying to monetize Makerlog. I think I stuck in that mindset for too long because I thought people aren't really buying gold. What should I do? Should I keep adding more features to the gold plan? And then I realized people aren't buying gold for the features. Sure, it's a good value add to add features to gold, but the truth is people who buy gold just want to support the community. And thinking about it from the traditional mindset of SaaS, where you add usually more value to gold plans to premium plans, so people will buy them, was just not the right mindset now that I realize it. And I think the Patreon plan is a colossal step into how Makerlog will be monetized and grow in the foreseeable future. That's probably the biggest mindset shift that I've had in the past few months. And another thing that I've learned that I wish I'd learned now and knew that I've learned now and wish I'd known before. Probably the customer discovery thing too. I wish I had known that from the beginning, but I did kind of need to have I needed a slap in the face to realize, wow, I'm so biased. So yeah, I want to trade that whole spiritual experience with iQurbs for anything, but I do wish I had known a few other things before.
Definitely. Now, last question. What would you say to somebody who's looking to start, building things and start building publicly? What would you say to someone who doesn't maybe have that experience, but is slowly starting to get out there?
Pradip, you're probably going to guess what I'm about to say.
I know.
Everybody,
yes.
Join Makerlog. If you're starting to build a product, or you wanna start building profitable products, Makerlog is the place to go. We have an amazing community. You have an amazing task management app, so you can become more productive and ship in public. All in all, it's the full package, man. Shipping in public makes you more productive. And you know what? Another thing that I'd say that people need to do more often is not only ship publicly but fail publicly. Document your failures just as if they were successes, because we a lot of people don't do that, and doing that puts you in a place of vulnerability that I think is so beneficial to oneself. The more vulnerable you become, the stronger you are. And I think documenting your failures is something that just generally contributes to your entrepreneurial journey very positively.
Absolutely, and being vulnerable actually builds trust. So if you have trust with other community members, when you're ready to monetize, that trust is already there. And that vulnerability is something that people find hard to put out there. But if you're able to do it, and it has to be real, not faked vulnerability, it has to be real, it over time starts to help build trust.
Yeah, I have a general rule of thumb. Do the things that make you absolutely like, oh no, God. And one of those things for me was this morning where I actually tweeted about, I tweeted a link to the first website I ever built.
Yes, I saw that.
It took so much to press that tweet button, because it's letting people into a really personal side of me. It was my first website. It's cringy. You look at the copy and it's pretty awful, and it's in badly written English and absolutely
it's part of your story.
English. But it's part of who I am, and it took a lot of to hit that tweet button. But I'm really proud that I did, because everybody gets to see who I am and what I've done. That's just me putting myself out there. Another thing that I'd say, if you're looking to build a thing and you're looking to do it for profit, how do I put this? Use the maker community more if you are not targeting makers, use the maker community more as a means of not validating, but testing your product only and not your idea. Because a lot of makers confuse the hype from people in the community as, oh, my idea is validated, I should ship this. But that's not the case. If you are not selling to makers, if you haven't validated anything by posting it on the MakerLog chat, or any chat for that matter, go Absolutely. And talk to your actual customers, go into their communities and talk to them, because they are the ones that matter. MakerLog is a place where we support you throughout the process of building the product, the code, bugs, initial user testing, feedback, all of that we can help you out with. But it's no replacement for actually going to your customers and asking them, and validating your idea. A lot of people make that mistake. I've made that mistake in the past. Don't do it. You're going to waste a lot of time.
Absolutely. Your community is fantastic. I've had lots of feedback. I've had lots of, input into articles and things I've done. It's fantastic. But use them for feedback or, testing and things like that. But I don't actually sell to the maker community. So I use them for ideas, and I use, conversations, chats, bouncing ideas off. And I love that. It's been fantastic.
Absolutely. So we are here to support you throughout the process of building the thing. If you're looking to build something, MakerLog, we're here with open arms. We're ready to give you feedback, help you out, generally be the most helpful community on the internet.
Perfect. Now, let's continue this conversation offline. I'd love to, maybe get some ads, when you set up your Patreon, I'd love to be a part of that. So we'll continue this conversation. But, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. I've learned so much from you and your community. It's been fantastic. And hopefully we get to have you on, later down the road once we start seeing some more, features, more MRR, and things like that. I'd love to have you back on.
Thank you so much, Prado, for the opportunity. Really excited to be here. I think I absolutely love the work you're doing with the product angle, and I'm excited to see what you do with summer product.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Sergio. I'm going to end the broadcast now. Thanks.
Bye-bye.